Gender Socialization: How Media Influences Gender Views by Molly Bland. As a nation, the question of equality has been a continuous topic of debate, ranging from equal representation to the current battle for gender equality. The battle of women's equality dates as far back as America's establishment of democracy. Abigail Adams wrote, "Remember the ladies and be more generous and favorable to them than your ancestors."
To the women of the world, from the women delegates and advisors at the First Assembly of the United Nations.
It is important to consider the prevalence of violence within society.
The message to the women of the world is, arise.
The women's movement is a political movement.
Human rights are women's rights, and women's rights are human rights once and for all.
We are all witnessing a historic moment, a moment characterized by unprecedented solidarity.
Today, you have adopted a landmark resolution. We have decided to establish UN Women. Now it is time that United Nations leads this campaign so that we can make a world better for all, where men and women can work together.
The evolution of women's equality has been a long journey and one that still continues, but it is not without its victories. Today, the role of women is much different than it used to be. Today, women serve in diverse settings of professions ranging from the labor industry, the military, the medical field, law enforcement, fire protection, and politics and positions of diplomatic power. In order to more appropriately discuss gender socialization, we must first define both society and gender. Society is defined as people in general thought of as living together in organized communities with shared laws, traditions, and values. Gender is defined as the state of being male or female. The mindset that girls behave one way and boys behave another is a description of gender roles in society. The two gender roles, female and male, are associated with a certain set of behaviors that are unique to an individual's gender. The traditional view of the female is that of the mother, spouse, and homemaker. The traditional view of the male is that of the head of the household, economic provider, and disciplinarian. Gender roles are formally defined as a set of behaviors, attitudes, and personality characteristics expected and encouraged of a person based on his or her sex. How are gender roles established? Judith Butler proposes that gender is socially constructed and that men and women act the way they do because of gender socialization, which is the process of teaching and influencing views and thoughts about gender within society. This process of teaching is called socialization. Socialization is the process by which individuals are taught to follow social conventions. Television is gender socialization's greatest tool. TV serves as the greatest tool because it reaches such a broad and diverse audience with a singular message. These messages influence how we view the world, It defines both our culture and social norms.
Dad's funny.
What's funny?
Well, whenever we cook inside, Mom always says you're cooking. But whenever we cook outside, you always do it. How come?
Well, it's sort of traditional, I guess. They say a woman's place is in the home, and I suppose as long as she's in the home, she might as well be in the kitchen.
Oh. Well, that explains about Mom. But how come you always do the outside cooking?
Well, I'll tell you, son. Women do all right when they have all the modern conveniences. But us men are better at this rugged type of outdoor cooking. Sort of a throwback to caveman days. Hand me those asbestos gloves, will you, Molly?
Does media really influence society? Research demonstrates that media exposure has a measurable influence on people's perception of the real world, and regardless of the accuracy of these perceptions, they are used to help guide subsequent attitudes, judgments, and actions. Like they say, if you see it on TV, it must be true. Why TV? What makes it such an influential tool for gender socialization? The answer is that TV consumes a significant part of American culture's free time. Research shows that gender roles are established early on in child's life, either by their parents or other external influences. What is the most significant external influencer in a child's life? Television. And television is playing a very influential role in helping to develop and define gender roles in an American society.
An ordinary dinner party. The sort of occasion we all enjoy. The men are exchanging witty stories. And look at the women, aren't they pretty? Look at the way they laugh. They're delightful.
I wonder if the government should return to the gold standard. I think it should. Good. Then we're all agreed.
I think the government should stay off the gold standard so that the pound can reach a level that will keep our exports competitive.
The lady has foolishly attempted to join the conversation with a wild and dangerous opinion of her own.
Debbie, we're going home.
Women, know your limits. Look at the effect of education on a man and a woman's mind. Education passes into the mind of a man. See how the information is evenly and tidily stored. Now see the same thing on a woman. At first we see a similar result. But now look, still at a reasonably low level of education, her brain suddenly overloads. She cannot take in complicated information. She becomes frantically and absurdly deranged. Look at see the proper way.
Good. So we're all agreed. We should return to the gold standard.
Oh, I don't know anything about the gold standard, I'm afraid, but I do love little kittens. They're so soft and furry.
The impact of television on gender roles and the influence it's created in regards to the socialization of gender in American is evident by the historical record television portrays of the American family and more specifically the role of the American woman. Television's historical record of its influence on gender is demonstrated by its progressive portrayal of the American housewife, ranging from the dutiful in-the-kitchen June Cleaver from Leave It to Beaver to the Cosby's professional attorney and Mom of the Year, Claire Huxtable. Perhaps even more convincing is television's portrayal of women as a whole, still often moms or wives, but also empowered. The role of the empowered woman has progressed from woman merely having an opinion to advocating for women's rights. The progression has moved from merely independent, as depicted by Angela Lansbury's Murder, She Wrote, to the more modern programming like Madam Secretary and The Good Wife, where women are both mother and powerful contenders within what was once a predominantly man's world. As the view of women on TV has changed, so has the overall status of women within American society. Women in the present are not required to stay in the kitchen to be socially acceptable. The career woman is now a social norm, and so as TV has embraced the progression of the women's movement, so society has embraced the progression. The successor of the gender role transition is evident by the roles women now hold in today's modern society. From Capitol Hill to the Supreme Court and all ranks of the military, and now globally as heads of state representing worldwide the American woman's continued march towards equality. But has the march towards equality come at a cost? Has television taken the women's movement too far in its portrayal of the empowered professional woman capable of having it all? Has the struggle for equality forced women, as portrayed by television, to lose part of themselves in order to compete in a man's world? Have women pushed so hard that the reflection of the cruel, hard, and at times heartless female portrayed on TV become a true representation of the women's movement? Television is such a powerful socialization tool because it submits a Bandra's social cognitive theory. This theory supports the argument that the media messages serves as a meaningful source for the acquisition of expectations of gender roles and conduct, self-evaluative standards, and self-efficiency beliefs. This means that what we see on TV, we seek to become both consciously and subconsciously. What's concerning about TV as a socialization tool working in concert with Bandura's socialization, social cognitive theory, is that there is little control over the socialization that's taking place. Networks and TV producers and their writers set the stage and project their versions of gender on society as a whole. The result of this modern portrayal of women was reported by the New York Times in 2005. In recent years, girls have become increasingly portrayed in everything from serious journalistic studies to light comedies like Mean Girls as tyrannical, bullying, and devoted to ruthless caste system. Because some shows depict women as mean or cruel or even unethical does not mean that society should demand a shift back to the traditional view. Should television once again portray the American woman as nothing more than the smartly dressed, pearls and aproned June Cleaver, wittily offering her mothering advice from behind her wooden spoon and ironing board? I would argue no. To return to that era seeks to set back a movement that has brought about progressive and social change. I would argue that many in today's society would never demand a shift backwards, for many reasons, to include social, economic, and political. Instead, I would argue that any negative portrayals of the modern American woman are twofold. First, there are some mean girls in society, just as there are mean boys in society, so television's portrayal of these characters is merely a reflection of society. Secondly, any negative portrayal that seeks to illustrate the only way a woman can succeed in a man's world is merely another obstacle in the battle for equality that must be overcome. And with the continued resilience and the continued progression of a gender equality in society, it is an obstacle that will be overcome. More importantly, the journey towards gender equality is one that must be continued. The goal of equality will never be achieved if one changes course and begins walking backwards. The decision to secure freedom for America was achieved by charging forward. The March for Freedom in Birmingham, Montgomery, and across the nation was achieved by linking arms and stepping forward, not backwards, and never by retreating. So, inasmuch the journey towards equality must continue to press forward. So long as there exists inequality in the workplace, so long as the woman's climb up the corporate ladder is met with resistance and sexual harassment, so long as women are blocked from occupations, positions deemed fit only for men, there is need to continue to march towards equality. A significant tool in that effort is television and the influence it provides in the gender socialization process. This is a tool that must be harnessed by women, so true portrayals of the modern woman are viewed, and so women of all ages, all races, and cultures can see the portrayal of success and dare to dream to be whatever they so desire to be, to choose their own destiny, and to define themselves as who they choose to be. This concludes my presentation on gender socialization, how media influences gender views.